Okay, so jumping straight into this massive midweek fight, Jai Opetaia, David Nika. It's got all the ingredients, hasn't it? A destructive champion, a live underdog. Talk us through the fight, Eddie.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like an unexpected one, really. I mean, we were staging an event here in on the Gold Coast with Jai Opetaia against Sin Cara, who was the mandatory. He got injured, and then we went down the list. And David Nika was a fight that we were thinking in 12 months' time is going to be a massive fight for Jai. You know, Aussie against New Zealander. And Nika said, "No, I'm ready now." So he jumped in. He was already supposed to be fighting on this card. And then at 3 weeks before the fight, we got a classic, you know, Jai, the best cruiserweight in the division, against a brilliant, undefeated amateur sensation in David Nika from New Zealand. So it's got a lot of people talking. It's been a great build-up and a couple of days to go.
We're seeing this more and more, like standout amateur fighters that are going for world titles a lot sooner than they used to. Why do you think that is?
I think this situation's a bit different. I mean, I think it probably is a little bit early for David Nika. Doesn't mean he can't win. But ideally, you always want to give people championship experience before they jump in the deep end. But, you know, the special ones can swim when you sling them in. And we'll find out if David Nika can. But I think the amateurs are moving faster than general in general anyway. And I think that's good. I think you shouldn't be afraid to lose the O. And at the end of the day, if Nika was to upset the odds on Wednesday night, you know, he'd be a huge star in the sport.
From one standout amateur to another, Anthony Joshua. There's a lot of talk of the Tyson Fury fight. It probably looks like both men's best options. Are we closer to that fight than ever before?
I mean, look, it's not something that we've talked through yet. I think obviously we're still a couple of weeks on from Tyson Fury's defeat to Usyk. I doubt he's really in the mood to start talking about the next one just yet. But if he does want to continue fighting, which I presume he does, it's an obvious fight to make. You know, it's the biggest fight in the sport still, and you know, you get people who say, "Oh, it's not." Oh, tell me a bigger fight. Like there isn't one. So for Anthony, you know, obviously he'd love another shot at Dubois to try and win that World Heavyweight Championship, but he's fighting Parker, and you know we could see what happens there. But really, I think now's the time to get that fight made, and we'll give Tyson Fury his time to rest and recover. And if it's something he was interested in, we'd love to make it happen.
And it's a fight people have been talking about for years. I wonder, from your point of view, why has it never happened before?
A number of reasons. You know, I think the time where it was going to happen, which was a time that we signed for the fight, was when Tyson Fury had his arbitration with Deontay Wilder for the rematch. And we'd signed to fight Tyson Fury. I believe Tyson Fury was going to fight Anthony Joshua. But then, you know, through the court ruling, he had to rematch Deontay Wilder. So that was taken out of our hands. Maybe a little bit of ego from, you know, the promoters from both sides. I don't know. I think timing's everything, you know, and I still think both fighters are in close to the prime of their career. I mean, I know that Tyson Fury got beat, but he got beat by Oleksandr Usyk in a close fight. There's no shame in that. He's still a brilliant fighter. You know, AJ's still a brilliant heavyweight. So I think it's a tremendous clash. And right now, it's very difficult to pick a winner in that fight, which is of course enthralling for the fight fans.
And Joshua, as well as Fury, has talked about targeting a belt at some point, possibly this year. Do you see that coming in a third fight with Usyk, or are you looking more at the Dubois Parker winner? You know, two big rematches there for him as well.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to go into a third fight with Usyk. I know AJ would love a crack, but you know, coming off the Dubois defeat, I think really it's a Dubois rematch. But he's got to beat Joseph Parker. I don't think that's a given at all. So you know, we'll see what happens February 22nd. AJ would love another crack at the World Heavyweight Championship, but you know, it might be out of his hands, and we'll see what happens with Tyson Fury.
Well, I did want to ask you about that huge heavyweight title fight, Dubois against Parker. How do you see that one going? How do you think that's going to play out on the night?
I think it's a very tough fight for Daniel Dubois. You know, I think Joseph's in the form of his career. I'm kind of like his unofficial promoter. He's a good mate of mine. I really like him. I think he's worked so hard to get himself back in this position. Don't forget he's coming off two huge wins. You know, one against Deontay Wilder and one against Zhilei Zhang. He's earned his shot. And I think he's got a good style to beat Daniel Dubois. But Dubois is on a tremendous run. He's full of confidence. And I see it as a 50-50 fight.
And obviously topping the bill on that night, a rematch from one of the best fights of 2024. Obviously, Dmitry Bivol, Artur Beterbiev. Talk us through that rematch. How do you see that one going? It was so close the first time.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so good. Riyadh season, you've seen two huge undisputed clashes in Fury Usyk and in Bivol Beterbiev, and the rematch is happening very quickly, which has been great. I was, it's well documented, I believe, that Dmitry Bivol won that first fight. It was a close fight, but I thought he deserved to win it. And it's got to be a little bit better in the closing stretch of the fight. But, I'm confident that he can become undisputed champion on February 22nd.
And a lot of people are calling that the best boxing card ever put together. Now, as someone who's promoted hundreds yourself, where would you rank that card? How do you think
I
it's
think you have to say. I think you have to say it's better. I mean, top to bottom. I mean, Bivol Beterbiev, of course, a tremendous fight. Then you've got the World Heavyweight Championship as co-main event, which is incredible. Dubois against Parker, Shakur Stevenson against Schofield, Callum Smith against Boatsi, Zhilei Zhang against Caballel, Israel Madrimov against Virgil Ortiz. I mean, it's just incredible. So I would say the greatest fight card we've ever seen.
And another fight that a lot of people have been talking about possibly taking place. It's been a little bit off and on for various reasons. Honestly, Conor Benn, Chris Eubank Jr. It's been raging for a while now, but now Conor hinting that he might go for the WBC title. Are we likely to see him against Eubank, or is Mario Barrios a possibility?
Yeah, I think the attraction of fighting Barrios for the world title is like I said, a very attractive one. I mean, obviously the financial rewards and the opportunity to be involved in an all British mega fight with Eubank is also very attractive. But it's difficult. It's been a difficult fight to get over the line. I've been talking a lot to Ben Shalom about getting the fight made, and we both want to make the fight, but obviously it's very difficult. Those two can't stand each other. There's a lot of hatred, and no one really wants to move it at all. And I think if we're going to make that fight, it'll be in the next week, and then after that, I think we'll give up. So it's been frustrating, but it is a huge fight, and hopefully we can get it over the line.
And in terms of where that fight would be placed, where do you see it taking place? On what sort of card? Is it going to be a headliner in its own right? Is it going to be UK based? Where do you see that falling?
It'll be in the UK, of course. A headline in its own right, be a stadium fight. So April is a month that we're looking at for that fight, but a long way to go. But yeah, it would land in the UK.
And Katie Taylor, she's just coming off another instant classic with Amanda Serrano, another unbelievable fight. Can you let us in on what might be next for her, where her head's at this point?
Yeah, Katie's just always up for the biggest challenge, and whether that's Serrano 3, whether that's Chantel Cameron 3, I think the two big fights out there for her. I mean, given the audience off the back of the Netflix show with Taylor Serrano, I think it's likely we could see a third. I think we'd be up for that. They've given us 2 fights of the year contenders, and I think they could fight 10 times. And I think we'd have 10 fight of the year contenders. So we'll have to see what's next, and we'll pick up those conversations in the next couple of weeks.
And something that's long been talked about for Katie is obviously Croke Park. It's been the ultimate goal, but I know there is a lot of red tape sort of stopping fights potentially taking place there. Is that still the ultimate aim for Katie?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things she hasn't done. One is Croke Park, another one is Las Vegas. They're 2 things that are definitely on the bucket list for her. So I think with Serrano 3, we really have an opportunity to do Croke Park. Whether we can make it happen, easier said than done, but we'll certainly open those talks and see if it's a possibility.
And Jack Catterall gets a massive fight in Manchester coming up against Arnold Barbosa. It's a great fight, but it is a risky fight as well. What was the thinking behind that? Was it going the mandatory route?
Yeah, I think Jack deserves a shot at a world title. And sometimes if you can't get that voluntary opportunity, you have to force your way to fight for a world championship via a mandatory position. So this fight with Arnold Barbosa will mean that Teofimo Lopez has to fight the winner. That's a huge fight, and it's a great fight, Catterall against Barbosa. We've seen a great crowd. He's been on a great run. He fought Linares, fought Josh Taylor, fought Regis Prograis. Now he's fighting Arnold Barbosa. No one can deny him that opportunity to fight for a world title. It's going to be a great show in Manchester, February the 15th. And if Jack wins, he finally gets his long-deserved shot.
Has anyone had to work harder for a world title? It feels like ever since the controversial defeat to Josh Taylor in the first fight, Jack has been walking through fire.
Yeah, I mean, he should already have been undisputed world champion. So it's very important to us that he gets that shot at a world title. And, he's done everything that's been asked of him. So now just get the victory over Barbosa and he's finally got his shot.
We talk about controversial fights with decisions that maybe got people's back up a little bit. Johnny Fisher and Dave Allen. What did you make of that first fight? And are we going to get a second?
Yeah, I mean, I did think it was a close fight, if I'm honest. I thought Dave Allen won by a point. But you score one round differently and Johnny Fisher wins by a point. So I think sometimes when there's a knockdown and you see someone hurt badly in a fight, it kind of makes you think that they won easy, but they really didn't. I think Dave will feel unlucky he didn't get the decision, but it's done now. And, for me, the rematch is huge. It's a dangerous fight for Johnny, but if he's going to go to the levels that we expect of him, he's got to be beating Dave Allen. And, a rematch in London will be a massive event, huge crowd. And, my advice to Johnny Fisher would be to take that next.
And another heavyweight on the other end of the spectrum that there's been a lot of talk about, Wladimir Klitschko. You don't know how much of this to believe. Maybe you know more than me on this. Do you see him coming back to the ring? And do you want it to happen as well?
I mean, look, Vladimir's bright enough and to make his own decisions. I think that it's a long time out of the ring he's had since the AJ fight. But he's always kept himself in tremendous physical condition. So, when he finished that fight, it wasn't like he was shot or, looked terrible. He nearly beat AJ that night. So, I think it would be difficult to come back and start getting involved in the trenches. But he does that on a daily basis at the moment. He's a very strong man. He's a great man. And, whatever decision he makes, I'm sure it'll be the right one for him.
And if he does come back, who would you like to match him against? If they came to you and said, Eddie, who have you got for Wladimir? Who would you be looking at?
I don't know. I mean, I think, he has to pick the right style, to take on. But I think that, obviously the Fury fight might have made sense. But he got beat, so we'll have to see.
And a man that you know all too well, Devin Haney, is returning to the ring in March, possibly against Adrian Broner. What's the relationship like with you guys now? And what do you think of this as a potential move for Devin?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the Broner fight. I mean, look, he needs to get back in the ring because obviously he fought Ryan Garcia. He got beat in that fight and, he needs that confidence booster before he goes into a potential rematch. So I think it'd be great to see Devin back in the ring. I think he's, an asset to the sport and looking forward to seeing him back.
And why was there that sort of breakdown in communications with you guys? It went public. It got a bit nasty. How did all that come about?
Well, he tweeted that I wouldn't give him a ticket for the fight. I mean, he's not my fighter. It wasn't necessarily my show. And I didn't like the fact that he put it out on Twitter. But it is what it is. We're always going to get on. We shared a lot together and I wish him all the best.
And I'm wondering, what does this year look like for Boots Ennis? There's a lot of options out there for him. How do you see his 2025 shaping up?
Yeah, I've got to land the unification, really. We turned down the Ortiz fight because he wants to unify the division. We turned down the Teofimo Lopez fight because all we want is a unification. So we've got to make that happen. Mario Barros or Stanionis are great options, and that's what we'll be pushing to do.
And a fighter I'm very excited to see make his pro debut. I know a lot of people up here in Manchester are as well. Pat Brown is debuting this year. Any word on a likely opponent for that one?
Not yet. I mean, obviously it's the debut, but he'll be headlining that Next Gen show. He's a massive ticket seller. He's already had, I think, a couple of thousand orders just for his first fight. So he's a tremendous talent, great amateur that I think is going to be very well suited to the pros. and looking forward to his professional debut in March.
And what is it about Manchester that seems to sort of foster these fighters? You know, I'm thinking Ricky Hatton, Anthony Crolla, obviously Jack now. How does Manchester just breed these fighters with such loyal followings and fan bases?
It's just because, I think it's a great fight city. Manchester, they support their own, and Pat's got a very unique fan base that's going to see him sell a lot of tickets.
And finally, this is the first time we're speaking to you this year, so I wanted to ask if you could come up with a New Year's resolution for boxing in 2025, something you think boxing needs to do this year, what would you choose?
I think really just don't worry about the O. Just go out there and be in great fights, take opportunities that present themselves, and give the fans what they want. And I think we're on the way to doing that. I think boxing's in a great place.